said that Canada should become the 51st state. Were you joking?
No. Well, I still believe that, but you know, it takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. There would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, you know, as a real estate developer, you know, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be. But, you know, I do feel it's much better for Canada. But we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
That is Trump at his absolute finest. No one in that room, most especially the new Prime Minister of Canada, no one had any idea how to respond to any of that. I mean, he's asked about his call for Canada to become the 51st state with the Canadian Prime Minister, the newly elected Liberal Prime Minister, Mark Carney, sitting right there next to him. And Trump absolutely doubles down on it. He gives us like an hour, a minute and a half of just, yeah, I think it would be great. It would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. He said that several times. Oh, they get a big, big tax cut, big, beautiful tax cut because their taxes are too high. I mean, what's not to like? You get a free military. We basically protect you already. You get tremendous medical care. You get all kinds of advantages. I mean, we don't deserve this guy. I mean, think about it. The leader of that country, the leader of the country that Trump is saying should just be another state, had to sit there in the Oval Office and he had no choice but to take it. He had no choice. He had to suck it up. I mean, you could tell how uncomfortable he was. He was shifting in his chair, Carney, right? 3 passports, Carney. He had to sit there and just basically suck it all up. He had no choice. And that's, of course, because Canada has no cards in this. To use the now famous phrase, now, of course, made famous in that very room, Canada's spending barely 1% of their GDP on defense expenditures. Trump has repeatedly pointed that out, that there are one of only 8 other nations that refuse to honor the 2014 promise to spend at least 2% of their GDP on defense. They used to have a secure border. Now it's wide open. Trudeau allowed that. Illegal border crossings skyrocketed under Trudeau. Canada's imposed asymmetrical trade policies and tariffs. They're giving Canada $60 to $100 billion trade surplus with the United States. A lot of Americans were shocked to find out that Canada doesn't allow American dairy products in. They were shocked to find out that many of our products are basically banned from Canada. They were shocked to find out that Canada exports timber to the United States, but it doesn't allow our timber to be exported to Canada. I mean, there are all kinds of those trade barrier-like policies and tariffs that have allowed Canada to accumulate upwards of $100 billion trade surplus with the United States. So that's why Mark Carney had to sit there and basically take that. He had to sit there and get publicly humiliated by Trump as Trump reiterated why he thought Carney should be a governor, not a prime minister. And it got even worse. Check this out.
The largest client of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us, and the changes that made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world. And to your question about is there one thing? No, this is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved, and this will take some time and some discussions, and that's why we're here, to have those discussions, and that is represented by who's sitting around the table.
See, the conflict is, and this is very friendly. We're not. This is not going to be like we had another little blow up with somebody else. That was a much different. This is a very friendly conversation. But we want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada, and we put tariffs on cars from Canada. And at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars. And we don't want steel from Canada because we're making our own steel, and we're having massive steel plants being built right now as we speak. We really don't want Canadian steel, and we don't want Canadian aluminum and various other things because we want to be able to do it ourselves. And we, because of, past thinking of people, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. In other words, they have a surplus with us. And there's no reason for us to be subsidizing Canada. Canada's a place that will have to be able to take care of itself economically.
If it can do that. He goes on to say that if it actually has the ability to do that. I mean, there you have it. That's about as explicit as Trump could possibly get. We're subsidizing Canada. When all is said and done, this 51st state rhetoric, what you've got to get here is that this 51st state rhetoric by Trump is rooted in him making explicit that in effect is what Canada has already become. We might as well just make it official. Gang, we all know that our country witnessed a moment we'll never forget. We saw a man get shot, stand up, fist in the air, and in defiance scream, "Fight!" Well, sadly, too many of us have lost our fight, and that's exactly how the globalists want it. They want us weak, out of shape, full of estrogen and microplastics. This is why we're so excited to partner with Choq. Choq offers a whole lineup of products formulated to increase your energy, your focus, detoxify your body, and based on clinical studies, boost your testosterone. In fact, the ingredients in the Choq Male Vitality Stack have been clinically studied to boost free testosterone by 87% in just 21 days. Unlike with gimmicky vegetable pills or powder, you're going to feel the difference, and they have the clinical studies to back it up. And right now, you can get 25% off your Choq subscription for life. You heard that right. For life. Just go to choq.com, that's spelled CHOQ.com, and use the promo code Turley. That's 25% off any subscription for life, and you can cancel anytime. Choq is made in America, and their all-American customer service team is standing by to assist you. It's time to make men's vitality great again. Get Choq today. That's choq.com, CHOQ.com. Promo code Turley. You can text or call them at 50-CHOQ-3000. That's 50-CHOQ-3000. Washington, D.C. and the American taxpayer and the American consumer are already subsidizing you like one of our own states. We're subsidizing your national security. You bring nothing to us, nothing. You're entirely indebted to our security guarantees. We're subsidizing your trade to the tune of $100 billion annually with your surplus on us. You impose tariffs and import bans on us, and then you cry and you scream when we threaten to do the same with you. Trump is making it clear those days are over. The days of other countries taking advantage of the United States as if they were one of our states are over. And so I'm assuming that Mark Carney is there right now as we speak to make a deal that somehow rectifies all those disparities, that gets them paying their fair share on defense for the North American civilizational sphere, as we like to call it, that creates parity and fairness in trade, that secures their border and the like. Now, Carney tried to save face. He desperately tried to one-up Trump with this. Check this out.
Along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership, and I'll say this as well, that the President has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
And they have, I must say, Canada is stepping up the military participation because Mark knew, they were low, and now they're stepping it up, and that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
Never say never. Never say never. You can be bought. There is a price. There is a chance. That was brilliant. Now, while all of this is happening, Carney does have even more problems at home. He's dealing with a series of rumblings of a provincial mutiny within Canada. So while Trump is demanding that Ottawa resolve these trade discrepancies and end what are, in effect, American subsidies to Canada, the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, is coming out and saying that Albertans will no longer be subsidizing other provinces like BC, British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec. Check this out.
The federal government must provide to Alberta the same per capita federal transfers and equalization as is received by the other three largest provinces, Quebec, Ontario, and British Columbia. We have no issue with Alberta continuing to subsidize smaller provinces with their needs, but there is no excuse for such large and powerful economies like Ontario, Quebec, BC, or Alberta to be subsidizing one another. That was never the intent of equalization, and it needs to end.
So as you can see, Carney is getting it from all sides here. He's getting pressure from the South. He's getting pressure from the West. And to make things even worse, he's dealing with a surge in Albertan secessionist sentiments. Bloomberg is reporting that very Premier Smith that you just heard is coming out and openly saying that an independence referendum is on the table. It's a very real possibility for 2026. This after Albertans met the signature threshold of a commitment petition to trigger a referendum vote on independence in a single day. The Alberta Prosperity Project accumulated over 100,000 signatures on a commitment to vote yes on a referendum for Alberta separation, literally just 48 hours after their election. And the reason for it is simple. Speaking of the election, take a look at the map. Do we have the, yeah, there we go. Now you have to keep in mind, blue and red are switched in Canada, right? Just like in Europe. So Alberta is the blue province in the center of the circle. So blue means conservative. Canada and Europe, blue is conservative and red is liberal. But as you can see, Alberta is entirely blue. They're not called the Texas of Canada for nothing. This is why so many Albertans are done with Ottawa that you could see to your right of the screen. That's largely red. They're increasingly recognizing that particularly the eastern part of the nation has just gone full woke. They've gone radical left. And they're increasingly recognizing that there's just no future for their values in Canada, given the current makeup, which will only get worse given Canada's radically liberal immigration policies. So we have to appreciate the concern here, right? We've analyzed the election here, the Canadian election last week. Remember, the Conservatives actually did quite well. They got a higher share of the vote as compared to past performances. They actually got their largest share of the overall vote in decades by a significant margin. They should have won that election were it a 3 to 4 way election. Like normally it would have been, like Stephen Harper had availed himself of. The problem is that support for all the third parties collapsed. The smaller parties, they fell apart. The NDP, the New Democratic Party, they collapsed. They ended up losing their longtime leader. Their seats went from 25 to barely 7. And you had this mass defection among their voters to the Liberals. And that, in the end, killed the Conservatives' chances of winning. I don't think you could pin this on Trump. Maybe you can, but the Conservatives in the end, did not lose their 20-point lead. That 20-point lead was a mirage. It was that lead came from a 3-way or 4-way race. And were the third parties to collapse as they did, those third-party voters, those NDP voters, those Green Party voters, they weren't going to the Conservatives. They were defecting to the Liberals. In fact, the Liberals aren't far enough left for them as it stands. So, as always, I'm going to argue, I think the solution is populism. Populism is the one political paradigm that we found that's able to unite both left, disaffected right, white working class, non-white working class, and so on. The problem here is Canadian populism is different. It's much more provincial. So Albertan populism is very different from Quebec populism. They actually vote opposite to each other. So there's no unified populist movement in Canada. And so that's why it's so many in Alberta and by implication, Saskatchewan are seriously considering the option of seceding, because Eastern Canada, as far as they're concerned, is just never going to reform itself at this point. Now, for those who don't know, the latest Angus Reid poll taken just before the election shows that 30% of Albertans wanted to leave the country if the Liberals ended up going on to win their national election, which of course they did. So we can assume that secessionist sentiments are at least 30%. They may be higher. We'll have to see. Again, we're not looking at a referendum until 2026. We'll have to see what happens over the course of the next year and a half or so. But regardless, Prime Minister Mark Carney is, he's just getting it from all sides here. He's getting pressure from Trump. He's getting pressure from his own provinces. We are in a fascinating time right now where the rules of international order are being rewritten. Trump clearly recognizes that, since he's the one rewriting so many of the rules. And it will be fascinating to see how things flesh out for our North American civilizational sphere in the weeks and months ahead. By the way, click on the link in the description below to get all these articles and tweets I reference throughout my videos emailed to you each and every day. You're going to love it. We want you to have the best resources out there to convince your family and your friends of this new MAGA super age that's rising here.